Do you ever wonder if the world has changed too quickly? If you grew up in the 1970s, you know exactly what I mean. The smells, the sounds, the things we used to love, they might be gone now. But the memories, they're still vivid. In this video, we're going to take a trip down memory lane, reminding ourselves of the 30 things only those who grew up in the 1970s will remember. The toys, the trends, the quirky moments in time that defined a generation. Get ready for a walk down Nostalgia Street, where everything was simpler, a little slower, and a lot more fun. 30 Saturday morning cartoons. Close your eyes and think back. It's early Saturday morning. The house is still and quiet. The sun barely starting to shine through the kitchen curtains. You slide out of bed in your pajamas. Maybe they had cartoon characters on them. Maybe just those soft flannel ones you wore all winter long. You pad into the kitchen, grab the biggest bowl you can find, and pour yourself a mountain of Cap'n Crunch or Fruit Loops. The sugary smell floats up, bright and sweet. Then you top it off with cold milk, making sure the cereal stays crunchy just long enough. Back in the living room, you plop onto the carpet, maybe that thick orange or green shag, and click on the TV. That warm glow, that soft buzz of the tube warming up. And then, magic, Bugs Bunny, the Jetsons, Scooby-Doo, Fat Albert, and the Super Friends. For hours, nothing else mattered. No school, no chores, just cartoons and cereal. There were no streaming services, no pause button, no rewind. If you missed an episode, you had to wait a whole week. But somehow, it didn't bother us, because every Saturday morning felt like it was made just for kids. And when Soul Train or American Bandstand came on, that was the sign cartoons were over, and it was time to finally go outside. Kids today will never know that feeling of those few precious hours when the TV belonged completely to us. 29 Temps and space food sticks in the 1970s. America was obsessed with space. The Apollo missions, astronauts walking on the moon. It felt like anything was possible. And thanks to that, even snack time felt futuristic. Temps, that bright orange drink powder, claimed to be what astronauts drank in space. Just a couple scoops into a glass of water, a quick stir, and suddenly you were sipping the same thing they had on Apollo 11. Was it delicious? Maybe not exactly. But as kids, we didn't care. And right next to Temps, in every kid's lunchbox, was space food sticks. These chewy, chocolate or caramel-flavored bars were supposed to mimic the snacks astronauts ate in zero gravity. They came in shiny wrappers that made you feel like you were unwrapping a piece of the future. Sitting at the lunch table with friends, unwrapping a space food stick and washing it down with Temps. For a moment, you weren't just a kid in school. You were an explorer, flying through the stars. Today, when people think about snacks, they talk about granola bars and protein shakes. But back then, nothing beat pretending to be an astronaut with Temps and a space food stick in hand. 28 Riding in the way back. Every family in the neighborhood had one. A giant station wagon, often avocado green, mustard yellow, or wood-paneled along the sides, and the best seat in the house wasn't really a seat at all. It was the way back, that rear-facing third row where you'd sit and watch the world fly by. Backwards, no seat belts, no booster seats, just you and your siblings bouncing around, making funny faces at the cars behind you. Road trips were long and sometimes boring, but sitting in the way back made it an adventure. You'd make up games, count license plates, snack on homemade sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, and maybe even sneak a nap on a pile of blankets. And when the sun started to set, you'd stare out the window at the fading light, listening to your parents' favorite AM radio station playing soft rock and oldies. For many of us, It was the first time we ever felt that quiet wonder of the open road. Today's cars are safer and sleeker, but nothing will ever replace the freedom of riding in the way back. 27 Shrinky Dinks. On rainy afternoons, when playing outside wasn't an option, we'd pull out a magical craft called Shrinky Dinks. These thin sheets of plastic seemed simple at first. You'd color in pictures with markers or colored pencils, maybe cartoon characters or animals, but then came the best part. You'd carefully cut them out, place them on a baking sheet, and slide them into the oven, pressing your face close to the oven door. You'd watch as the flat sheets curled and twisted, shrinking down smaller and smaller, and then flattening into thick, glossy charms. Every single time, it felt like a miracle. You'd turn them into keychains, necklaces, or little keepsakes you'd proudly show off to friends. There was something deeply satisfying about holding that tiny, shrunken piece in your hand, knowing you made it yourself. And maybe, just maybe, one or two still sit tucked away in an old jewelry box or keepsake drawer to this day. 26. The Sears Wish Book. Every autumn, long before Halloween decorations were packed away, one special delivery showed up at every house. The Sears Wish Book, thick, glossy, and heavy in your hands. It was more than just a catalog. It was pure Christmas magic. You'd flip past pages of toasters and tools until you hit the toy section. Page after page of bikes, dolls, action figures, board games, train sets, and shiny new gadgets. With a pen or marker in hand, you'd start circling, making lists, dreaming big. Maybe you dog-eared a few pages or wrote your name next to your favorites. Lying on your belly on the carpet, flipping through those pages, you could spend hours imagining what Christmas morning might look like. You didn't just shop, you dreamed. And when you handed that carefully marked-up catalog to your parents, you crossed your fingers and hoped Santa got the message. These days, kids scroll websites or make Amazon wish lists, but nothing will ever replace the feeling of flipping through the Sears Wish Book and letting your imagination run wild. 25 Lawn darts. Remember the excitement of summer afternoons, the sun beating down and the smell of fresh grass. There was nothing quite like a game of lawn darts, or, as they were officially called, jots. The rules were simple. You had two giant metal-tipped darts, and the goal was to throw them at a plastic ring or circle on the ground, trying to land the darts right inside. But that wasn't the best part. The real thrill came when you launched those heavy, sharp darts into the air, watching them soar. It felt like a mix of excitement and danger, the kind of game where you'd be constantly on your toes, making sure you didn't get hit by a dart that fell from the sky. And if you were lucky enough to have a few friends who played, it became a full-on competition, each throw more intense than the last. But you won't find lawn darts in backyards anymore. Over time, the metal tips became too dangerous, and the game was banned. Still, if you close your eyes and think back, you can almost hear the thunk as a dart landed in the ring, a sound that meant you were winning. And summer was in full swing. 24 drive-in movie theaters. Picture this. The sun is setting, and the air smells like popcorn. You and your family pile into the car, grab a blanket and snacks, and drive to the local drive-in theater. There's something magical about it. The whole experience felt like an event. You pull into one of those small spaces, the giant movie screen looming ahead, and roll down your windows. Back then, the sound didn't come through speakers like it does today. No, you tuned into your car's radio to hear the movie. As the sun sets and the first previews roll, you feel like you've stepped into another world. The smell of hot dogs and nachos, the sound of the opening credits, and the quiet hum of people settling in to watch the latest film. Whether it was a double feature, a scary horror movie, or a romantic comedy, there was something special about the drive-in. You could laugh, chat, and sometimes even sneak a kiss in the back seat. These theaters were the place where generations went to escape into a story. And maybe, just maybe, catch a late-night screening of something a little scandalous. Sadly, the rise of home video and streaming services killed off most of these nostalgic spots. But if you were lucky enough to experience a drive-in, you know that the magic never quite faded away. 23. Pet rocks. In the 1970s, you could find almost anything for a pet. But one thing you might never have expected was a pet rock. Yes, you heard that right. A rock. They came in a box, with air holes and a little straw bed, and it was marketed as the perfect low-maintenance pet. No feeding, no walking, no grooming, just sit there. It might sound like a joke, but it wasn't. People actually bought them. Some were smooth, others jagged, and each rock had its own personality. You'd give it a name, decorate its box with stickers, and treat it like your best friend. The pet rock craze was short-lived, but for a time, it was everywhere. People gifted them to friends, and they even became a bit of a pop culture sensation. Sure, it wasn't exactly a traditional pet, but it made for one of the quirkiest fads of the 70s. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there still has a pet rock tucked away on a shelf somewhere. 22 vinyl records. Music in the 1970s. Just about listening to your favorite songs. It was about the experience. The sound of vinyl records spinning on a turntable, the crackle of the needle hitting the grooves, and the full, rich tones that filled the room. You couldn't just skip to the next song whenever you felt like it. No. In those days, you had to flip the record over if you wanted to hear side B, and every song on that record felt like it belonged, creating a soundtrack to your life. Whether it was the Beatles, Elton John, or Fleetwood Mac, music in the 70s had a soul, and those records held memories. There was something special about holding a vinyl album in your hands, reading the lyrics printed inside, and just letting the music wash over you. Vinyl wasn't just about the tunes. It was an experience. But today, we stream music from our phones, and a tactile pleasure of flipping through record crates has been replaced by endless playlists. Still, those who grew up with vinyl know that nothing compares to the feeling of dropping the needle onto that record and hearing the first notes play through the speakers. It wasn't just music. It was a memory. 21. The Mall Arcade. Growing up in the 70s, one of the best places to hang out was the Mall Arcade. This wasn't just a place to shop. It was an entire world of flashing lights, electronic sounds, and the click of a joystick. You and your friends would walk in, maybe with a handful of quarters or a roll of tokens. And the moment you hit the arcade doors, you were transported to a world of pinball machines, Pac-Man, and Space Invaders. The air was thick with the sounds of bleeps and bleeps, the occasional cheer as someone hit a high score, and the clinking of coins being dropped into machines. There were no smartphones or gaming consoles at home to distract you. If you wanted to play, you had to be there, in the middle of it all. And when you finally hit that jackpot on a game, when your score rolled over and the machine lit up with all its glory, it felt like winning a gold medal. Malls back then were social hubs, a place to see and be seen. And for a whole generation, the arcade was the heart of it all. But just like the machines, the mall arcades began to fade. The rise of home gaming systems and online multiplayer games made those busy arcades a thing of the past. Still, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the buzz of the games, the laughter of friends, and the rush of victory every time you dropped that quarter. 20. The Sears Catalog. If you were growing up in the 1970s, the Sears Catalog was an essential part of life. Every year, a giant, thick catalog would arrive, and it was like Christmas came early. The Sears Wish Book, as it was affectionately known, was a magical collection of toys and gadgets, all available for purchase, and all in one place. Families would gather around the table, flipping through the pages, dreaming about the things they wanted. The catalog wasn't just a shopping guide. It was a window into a world of possibility. Kids would circle their favorite toys in bright markers, while parents would browse home appliances and furniture, planning for the future. The Wish Book didn't just show you products, it gave you hope. For a few moments, it felt like anything was possible. And who could forget the excitement of ordering directly from the catalog? Whether it was a set of new toys, a winter jacket, or a set of shiny new dishes, it felt like magic when it showed up on your doorstep. Today, online shopping has replaced the physical catalog. But there's still something undeniably special about the Sears catalog that no online experience could ever replicate. 19. MASH merchandise. The 1970s weren't just about disco and bell-bottoms. There was also a massive cultural shift, thanks in part to TV shows like Mars Asterisk. This medical comedy drama about a group of doctors and nurses in the Korean War captured the hearts of Americans in a way few shows had before. It blended humor with heartbreaking drama, and that mix made it a cultural touchstone. But what really made Mars Asterisk a phenomena was the merchandise. People didn't just watch the show, they lived it. From Mars Asterisk H board games to t-shirts, posters, and even action figures of characters like Hawkeye and Trapper John, the world of Mars Asterisk H was everywhere. If you were a fan, you probably had a few pieces of this memorabilia in your house. A MASH mug for your morning coffee, a t-shirt with the iconic MASH logo on it, or even a toy helicopter from the series. For a show that dealt with heavy topics like war and loss, Mars Asterisk H was beloved, because it connected with people on such a deep level. It wasn't just a show, it was a way of life, and the merchandise reflected that bond. Today, Mars Asterisk H remains one of the most iconic shows of all time, but much of that merchandise has disappeared into the archives of TV history. 18. The Yellow Pages. Before the internet, before smartphones, there was the Yellow Pages. Every household had a massive phone book filled with businesses, services, and emergency numbers. The Yellow Pages was your go-to directory for everything. From finding a plumber to ordering a pizza. Need a new refrigerator? Flip through the pages for appliance stores. And let us not forget how fun it was to randomly flip through the book when you were bored, just to see how many businesses there were for things like pet grooming or hauling services. But the real magic of the Yellow Pages, if you needed something fast, it was the place to go. If your car broke down and you didn't know who to call, there was a number for a tow truck. If the toilet was clogged, you'd find a plumber's number. The Yellow Pages were a lifeline. Google and Yelp. The thickness of the book was a symbol of just how much information was at your fingertips, all within the flick of a page. With the rise of the internet, though, the Yellow Pages quickly became obsolete, replaced by online search engines. But for anyone who lived through it, flipping through those Yellow Pages is a memory that will never fade. 17. The Talking Barbie doll. In the 1970s, Barbie was more than just a doll. She was a trendsetter, a symbol of what young girls could be, from doctors to astronauts to rock stars. But one version of Barbie took things to a whole new level. The Talking Barbie doll, released in 1971. Talking Barbie was one of the most innovative toys of the time. Instead of the usual silent plastic figures, Barbie now had a voice, speaking a series of pre-recorded phrases like, "I'm Barbie," or "Let's go for a ride." It was revolutionary. The doll was powered by a small voice box that was activated when you pressed a button on Barbie's back. It was like bringing a bit of life into a toy, a feature that was almost magical for kids of that generation. Of course, as you might imagine, the technology wasn't perfect. Over time, Barbie's voice would start to sound a bit garbled, but that didn't stop kids from loving her. The Talking Barbie doll became a massive hit, and it wasn't just the younger kids who loved it. Even collectors today will tell you that this iconic doll holds a special place in history. Unfortunately, Barbie's voice box didn't last long. By the mid-1970s, new versions of Barbie were introduced, and the talking feature was phased out. But if you were lucky enough to have one of these dolls, you had something that was a true product of its time. 16 Tupperware Parties. Imagine stepping into a friend's living room, a bowl of chips in one hand, a glass of punch in the other. There's a buzz in the air, and the excitement is palpable. The reason? It's a Tupperware party. In the 1970s, these home parties were all the rage. They were the perfect blend of socializing, shopping, and showing off the latest in kitchen innovation. Tupperware, the plastic containers that promised to keep your food fresh longer, was a gift. But the real magic happened when someone would invite you to a friend's house to see all the new shapes, sizes, and colors of containers. These parties were more than just about the products. They were about the experience. A chance to gather with friends, share recipes, and show off the latest and greatest in kitchenware. And if you hosted a Tupperware party, you were in for some fun rewards. Not only could you earn free Tupperware, but you'd also become the go-to host for your circle of friends. Today, Tupperware parties are a thing of the past, replaced by online shopping and social media influencers. But for those who remember them, there is still a warm nostalgia for the days when gathering around the kitchen with friends was a little more personal, a little more hands-on. 15 penny candy stores. In the 1970s, penny candy stores were a rite of passage for many children. These humble shops were small, often mom-and-pop operations, but they offered something priceless. Candy for just a penny. It wasn't about buying big bags of candy from a grocery store. No, penny candy was an experience. You'd walk into the shop, the glass jars lined up in neat rows, each filled with colorful sweets, from jawbreakers to gummy worms, licorice to candy cigarettes. The choices were endless. And the best part, you could get a lot for your pocket change. With just a few pennies in your pocket, you could load up on sweets for days. Every penny counted, and each piece of candy felt like a little treasure. Kids would spend hours in the store, choosing their favorite treats, negotiating with friends on how to split a pack of candy, or even showing off the latest additions to their collections. It wasn't just about eating the candy, it was about the thrill of the hunt. Unfortunately, with the rise of big box stores and convenience marts, penny candy stores began to disappear by the 1980s. But for those who grew up in the 1970s, the memory of a visit to a penny candy store is a sweet reminder of simpler times. 14 Instant photography with Polaroid cameras. Imagine taking a photo and watching it develop right before your eyes. That was the magic of the Polaroid camera. In the 1970s, instant photography was all the rage. Polaroid cameras, with their iconic white-bordered photographs, gave people the ability to instantly capture memories. You'd take the picture, then shake the photo as it slowly developed before your very eyes. It was like witnessing a little miracle in real time. The excitement of seeing a moment captured instantly, ready to be shared with friends, was a new experience that felt magical. Whether it was a picture of friends at a party, a vacation snapshot, or a random funny moment, Polaroid photos became treasured keepsakes. Plus, there was something oddly satisfying about the sound of the camera's shutter and the whir as the picture would eject from the camera, ready to be held and admired. But over time, digital cameras and smartphones replaced the Polaroid. The instant gratification of snapping a photo and having it develop right away became a novelty of the past. However, for those who lived through it, the Polaroid camera represents a time when photos were personal, tangible, and full of emotion. 13. Cabbage Patch Dolls. There are few toys more iconic than the Cabbage Patch Kids. Released in the late 1970s, these unique, soft-bodied dolls with their unmistakable faces took the world by storm in the 1980s. But their popularity began years earlier, creating a frenzy that lasted for decades. The thing that set Cabbage Patch Dolls apart was their uniqueness. Unlike traditional dolls, these little characters had their own personalities, each with a unique name and birth certificate. The idea was that every Cabbage Patch Kid was special, a real individual that couldn't be found anywhere else. Parents and children alike went wild over the dolls. It wasn't just about buying a toy, it was about adopting a new friend. People would camp out at stores, eagerly waiting for the new shipment of Cabbage Patch Kids to arrive. Some even resorted to trading the dolls on the secondary market for ridiculous prices. These dolls had an undeniable charm, and they became a cultural phenomenon. Whether you had one growing up or remember the Cabbage Patch Kid hysteria from TV commercials, these dolls marked a significant chapter in the world of childhood toys. Today, Cabbage Patch Dolls are still beloved by collectors, but the craze has faded. Still, for anyone who grew up during their peak years, the memory of the Cabbage Patch frenzy is unforgettable. 12. The Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto may not have been the most glamorous car, but for many people in the 1970s, it was the epitome of affordable transportation. The Pinto was released by Ford in the early 1970s, designed as an economical, compact car aimed at the budget-conscious consumer. It was cheap to produce and sold at a low price, making it appealing to a wide audience. For those who grew up in the 1970s, the Pinto was a common sight on the road. It was a car that symbolized freedom and independence. Whether it was a teenager's first car or a small family's new ride, the Pinto made car ownership accessible to everyone. But while the Pinto was affordable and practical, it also had a notorious reputation. The car gained infamy because of safety concerns, particularly its tendency to catch fire in rear-end collisions. Despite its initial popularity, these issues ultimately led to a decline in the Pinto's reputation and sales. Today, the Ford Pinto is remembered more for its controversial safety history than for its place as a symbol of 1970s Americana, but it still holds a spot in the hearts of those who remember the days when it was the car to have. 11. The rise of disco and dance floors. If there was one defining cultural phenomenon in the 1970s, it was disco. Disco was more than just a genre of music. It was a way of life. The sound, the lights, the fashion, and the dance moves all became synonymous with the decade. Disco dominated the airwaves, with iconic hits from artists like the Bee Gees, Donna Summer, and Chic. But it wasn't just about the music. The disco dance floors became the heart of nightlife in the 1970s. Whether you were at a Saturday night fever-style disco club or just dancing at home with friends, there was a sense of freedom and joy that came with the music. The disco ball, the flashing lights, and the mirror-covered walls all created an atmosphere that was electrifying. The culture of disco was about expression, fun, and being part of a movement. From the clothes to the moves, everything about disco was designed to make you feel good and let loose. Disco's influence was so powerful that it even made its way into mainstream fashion, with people wearing bell-bottoms, platform shoes, and shiny polyester suits. However, by the early 1980s, disco's reign began to fade, but its impact on music and culture never truly disappeared. For those who grew up in the 1970s, the memories of a vibrant, energetic era remain a key part of the decade's legacy. 10 classic TV shows like Happy Days and The Brady Bunch. The 1970s were a golden age for television. Families gathered around the TV set to watch their favorite shows, many of which are still beloved today. Two iconic TV shows from this era were Happy Days and The Brady Bunch. Happy Days transported viewers back to the 1950s, offering a nostalgic look at suburban life. With characters like Fonzie and Richie Cunningham, the show captured the essence of the post-war era with humor, heart, and a lot of leather jackets. It was more than just a sitcom. It became a cultural touchstone, influencing fashion and language for years to come. Then there was The Brady Bunch, a show that presented the idea of the modern American family. It wasn't just about the funny situations that the blended family found itself in, but also about the heartfelt lessons that were delivered each week. The iconic theme song, "Here's the Story," still resonates with those who remember rushing home from school to catch an episode. These TV shows, along with others like The Partridge Family, Muz H, and All in the Family, made TV a central part of family life. They weren't just entertainment, they were conversations that families had after dinner, the sense of community and shared experience that came from watching these shows is a defining memory of growing up in the 1970s. 9 drive-in theaters. Before streaming services and home theaters, there was a unique way to watch movies: the drive-in theater. In the 1970s, drive-ins were the go-to for a fun night out, especially for teenagers and young couples. The concept was simple. Pull up to a large outdoor screen in your car, tune into the designated radio station for the sound, and watch a movie from the comfort of your vehicle. Drive-in theaters were magical in their own right. There was something about the open sky, the smell of popcorn, and the drive-in speakers that made watching a movie feel like an event. And it wasn't just about the movie itself, it was the experience. Grabbing a bag of popcorn, sneaking a kiss with your date, or hanging out with friends in the back seat of the car. Many drive-ins played double features, meaning you could watch 2 movies for the price of one. Unfortunately, by the late 1980s, drive-ins started to fade away as multiplex theaters took over, offering larger screens and better sound. But for those who grew up with them, the drive-in experience was an unforgettable part of 1970s childhood. 8. The rise of the home computer. The 1970s were the years when computers went from a rare scientific curiosity to something that began to enter people's homes. In the early part of the decade, computers were massive machines used only by governments and corporations. However, by the late 1970s, personal computers like the Apple II and the Commodore PET began to hit the market. These early computers were bulky, with green screens and very limited memory. But they were the precursors to the technological world we live in today. For kids growing up in the 1970s, getting to interact with these early computers was a fascinating experience. Many families had one computer in the house, and it became a centerpiece for learning, playing, and experimenting. It wasn't just about gaming either. Early personal computers introduced a whole new world of programming. Kids who were curious about technology began learning basic coding and enjoyed creating their own simple games and programs. The excitement around home computers in the 1970s laid the foundation for the technological boom that would follow in the next decades. Today, we take computers for granted, but in the 1970s, they were the start of a new revolution in how we communicate, work, and play. 7. Bellbotton pants and platform shoes. Fashion in the 1970s was as bold and expressive as the decade itself. One of the most iconic fashion trends of the 1970s was bell-bottom pants. These pants, which flared out at the ankle, became synonymous with the era's free-spirited vibe. Whether in denim, corduroy, or even leather, bell-bottoms were everywhere. From the streets to the disco, They were paired with platform shoes, creating a look that was both dramatic and fun. Platform shoes gave people extra height, making them feel even more glamorous. The taller, the better. Whether you were a guy or a girl, platform shoes were a must-have accessory for any 1970s wardrobe. These fashion statements weren't just about style, they were about attitude. The 1970s was a decade of freedom and rebellion, and bell-bottoms and platforms perfectly encapsulated that spirit. By the end of the decade, these trends began to fade out, but they left behind a legacy of bold fashion choices that are still fondly remembered today, particularly when the fashion world experiences a wave of retro nostalgia. 6. The birth of the video game industry. While we now have sophisticated gaming consoles and virtual reality, the video game industry had much humbler beginnings in the 1970s. The first widely successful arcade game, Pong, hit the scene in 1972. Developed by Nolan Bushnell and Atari, it was a simple game that involved 2 paddles and a ball. Think digital ping pong. While it may seem primitive by today's standards, Pong was a game. Arcades quickly began popping up in shopping malls, pizza parlors, and even grocery stores. Kids and teenagers would flock to these arcades, spending their spare change to compete for the highest score. It wasn't just about the game itself. It was the experience of gathering around the arcade machines, competing with friends, and being a part of a burgeoning subculture. The success of games like Pong led to the development of more advanced games, and by the late 1970s, home consoles like the Atari 2 were released, bringing arcade gaming into the living room. By the 1980s, video games had become a massive cultural phenomenon. But for those who grew up in the 1970s, the sight of those early arcade machines and the thrill of playing Pong for the first time is a nostalgic memory. 5. The disco craze. The 1970s were undeniably the era of disco. It wasn't just a type of music, it was a cultural movement that took over the world, especially in places like New York's Studio 54. The energy of disco was infectious, with its catchy beats, glittering costumes, and danceable rhythms. Songs like Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees and I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor became anthems for a generation that loved to dance, party, and escape. At the heart of the disco craze was the nightclub scene. People flocked to dance clubs to show off their moves on the glittering disco floors under the glow of a disco ball. The fashion was just as important as the music. Sequins, platform shoes, tight jumpsuits, and wide-collared shirts became the uniform of the disco crowd. It wasn't just about partying. Disco represented a new kind of freedom. It was a time of embracing individuality and celebrating diversity. Disco was also a place where people from all walks of life, including different races, genders, and sexual orientations, could come together to express themselves and just enjoy the music. While disco's popularity started to fade in the early 1980s, its influence is still felt today. From the resurgence of disco-inspired fashion to the continuing love of its music in movies and TV shows, the disco craze remains a major part of 1970s history. For the birth of punk rock, while disco was all about glamour and excess, another movement was bubbling up from the underground in the 1970s. Punk rock was rebellious, raw, and loud. It was a response to the more polished, commercial music of the time. Bands like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, and the Clash were at the forefront of this new musical genre, which combined garage rock with an anti-establishment ethos. Punk was about attitude. It rejected the mainstream, embraced DIY ethics, and celebrated individuality. The fashion that accompanied punk was equally bold, with spiked hair, leather jackets, band t-shirts, and safety pins. It was all about standing out and challenging societal norms. The punk movement wasn't just about the music or fashion. It was a philosophy. Punks rejected the mainstream culture of the 1970s, calling for freedom, self-expression, and a new way of thinking. While punk rock didn't dominate the charts in the same way disco did, its cultural impact was immense. The movement laid the groundwork for future alternative and indie music scenes, and its DIY ethos continues to influence musicians and artists to this day. 3. The launch of MTV. While MTV officially launched in 1981, its roots were firmly planted in the 1970s. The music video as we know it today was born out of a need for a more visual experience for music lovers. The 1970s saw the first experiments with music videos, often called promotional films. These early videos were often just footage of a band performing their hit songs, but by the end of the decade, artists began to experiment more with storytelling in their videos. One of the most iconic early music videos was Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Its stunning visuals and creative direction set the stage for what would come next. Enter MTV in 1981, a channel dedicated entirely to music videos. It wasn't just about watching your favorite artists perform. It was about experiencing their entire persona through the music video format. Artists like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and David Bowie revolutionized the industry with their groundbreaking music videos, turning MTV into a cultural phenomenon. While MTV's official launch was in 1981, it wouldn't have been possible without the groundwork laid by the creative minds of the 1970s who pioneered the concept of music videos. To the rise of the personal cassette player before the age of smartphones, MP3 players, and streaming, there was the Walkman, the portable cassette player that forever changed the way people listened to music. Released in 1979 by Sony, the Walkman allowed people to listen to their favorite music anywhere. While walking, running, or just lounging in the park, it was the perfect blend of technology and freedom. The Walkman made music more personal. Unlike traditional radios or record players, you could now control what you listened to and take it with you wherever you went. Whether it was on a road trip, in the backyard, or while waiting for the bus, the Walkman made music a constant companion. Cassette tapes became the medium of choice for music lovers, and creating mixtapes for friends or loved ones became a popular pastime. People would spend hours making the perfect playlist, carefully recording songs off the radio or from their own collection. The Walkman revolutionized personal music listening, and even though it's now been replaced by digital devices, it remains one of the most beloved gadgets from the 1970s. 1. The first moon landing. While technically this event happened just before the 1970s, its impact shaped the entire decade. The Apollo 11 mission in 1969 saw Neil Armstrong take the first steps on the moon, making history as the first human to walk on the lunar surface. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Those words are etched into the memory of everyone who lived through that monumental moment in history. For those growing up in the 1970s, the moon landing was proof of human potential. It was a symbol of what could be achieved through science, technology, and collaboration. The event sparked interest in space exploration, STEM education, and inspired millions of young people to dream big. The excitement around space exploration continued through the 1970s with subsequent missions to the moon and the launch of the Space Shuttle program. The moon landing remains one of the most defining events of the 20th century, and its legacy continued to shape cultural, technological, and scientific developments throughout the 1970s and beyond. Thank you so much for taking this nostalgic trip with us down memory lane. The 1970s was a decade that shaped so much of who we are today, from the music we listen to, the fashion we wear, to the technology we rely on. We'd love to hear from you. What do you remember most about the 1970s? Do any of these memories bring you back to your younger years? Drop a comment below and share your stories. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more stories like this, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a blast from the past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for more memories that never go out of style.